is what it is.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of our podcast. Today, we're with LaSheita Sayer of Women Who Charge. She's going to share with us some of the latest in the field of EVs and charging. LaSheita, why don't you take a minute to tell us a little bit about your background and why you started Women Who Charge?
I'd be happy to. Just turning my phone off here so I get a few less interruptions. Sorry, it's a busy
Good
day.
idea. I'll do the same. Good idea.
It just starts ringing in the middle of a podcast, like, hey, pay attention to me. Great
Right.
timing. So yeah, happy to, Michael. Women Who Charge is a nonprofit that I started a few years back. First, it was just a group of women that got together. We all drove EVs, appreciated EVs, and we also like to drink wine. So it's evolved quite a bit from there, because what we found was that there were a number of challenges that we were facing that we felt like there were also some amazing solutions to. And we formed an organization of us women who happened to charge our EVs, but it turned out that we were also interested in a variety of things that charged, including solar and other rechargeable things that we're working towards the sustainability goals that we have to slow down climate action. So that's how we started. And what we've turned into or evolved into is a group of really amazingly talented women who are passionate about slowing down climate change in our own, with our own strengths. So our focus, majority of the time, what we're called on to do at Women Who Charge is to speak about our passion and advocating for electric vehicles, but also in ensuring that there are charging spaces that are accessible and that feel safe. From a woman's perspective, we tend to just look at things a little differently when we're out in the public, and things like parking lots and where we might pull over to charge is one of those areas that we seem to have had a different perspective. And so that's a lot of, we bring a value to a number of tables that we're invited to because of that perspective that we don't really think is all that unique, but others do. So we do a variety of different things, but when it comes to electric vehicles or charging stations and solar and other things that are recharging or needing to have a perspective, we're bringing that professional perspective to the table as best as we can.
Yeah, I remember when we spoke the last time we met, you mentioned that for women, the two places they prefer to charge are at home and at work.
Oh, yeah.
And I can see that. Can you elaborate on that a little? And what are, because it can't always be one of those two options. What do you recommend for a third option for women who need to charge their car, but they're not at home or work?
So the public charging infrastructure is oftentimes where we land. So the first and greatest and safest and less and most cost-effective place to charge first is at home. If you live in a home and you have a garage or you have access to an outlet that you usually plug your Christmas lights into, charge at home. It's so easy. You don't need any adaptions. There's literally just plug it into the same outlet that you use for your Christmas tree lights.
Right.
If you live in an apartment, maybe charging at home isn't quite as easy. So we are also advocating and working with as many business owners as we can to talk, and property owners to talk about having charging stations installed at places of work so that you can charge at work while you are working. If you're there 8 hours or 9 or 10 hours a day, like some of us, that's plenty of time to charge. And then if neither of those options are available, then we also need charging stations to be where we eat, shop, play, practice our faith. So at shopping centers, at restaurant locations, your favorite bar, your favorite brewery, your favorite church, your favorite community center where you go to work out, your rec centers. There, we can have And we expect to have, this intermingling, this matrix of different types of chargers, large chargers, small chargers, fast chargers, slow, blue ones, purple ones, yellow ones, green ones, right? It's going to be charging for a variety of different needs at a variety of different speeds at different costs for those charging stations. So the public infrastructure of charging stations is also important, because there will be a number, there's a 35% of our population that live in apartment buildings and not in single family homes. So that's a big chunk of folks that we want to make sure that we're addressing. And some people, just for a variety of reasons, just won't charge at home. Hopefully they will also be able to charge at work. And if they can't charge at work, they can hopefully charge in other parking lots where they tend to go on a frequent basis. That's our
So
goal.
I'm curious, like just speaking to here in the Denver metro region, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 would be there's plenty of chargers and people can charge at all those places while they're at church, while they're at and 1 being we're just getting scratching the surface here. Where do you think we are, at least here in the Denver metro area, as far as chargers in general?
I put us at about a 4. Now,
Okay.
that's not counting everyone who has a charging station at home, the
Right,
private ones.
right.
But when it comes to the public charging station
Yeah.
infrastructure, there's a lot of room for improvement. We have been helping the city to look at options where we can improve the volume of charging stations by installing them on things like what we call curbside charging for the urban environment, to have a charging station added to streetlight poles. We have tens of thousands of streetlight poles that are part of our public infrastructure. If the city could also contemplate adding a charging station at those poles, then we would instantly have access to thousands of charging ports around the city and county of Denver. But you'll see like up in 5 Points, we just got some fast DC fast chargers installed this year that came online down the corridor there in 5 Points, and it's amazing. It's a fast charger like the ones that you would see out on highways, but it's right in our urban center there in 5 Points. And so every once in a while we have these sort of glimmers and gleaming brilliant lights of charging that's happened. And then other places, the state of Colorado just put out a report, and it showed their the charging stations, the public charging stations located around the state. And they say that they have 76% coverage around the state of Colorado, that you are within 30 miles of a fast charging station 76% of the time. When you look at all of our highways around the entire state of Colorado, 76% coverage. Those are beautiful numbers. We've come a long way. And those are fast chargers. They're not the slower trickle chargers. They're the ones that are going to get you up and going in 30 to 45 minutes of charging. So
yeah, and those are of course
why we're doing great city-wise, urban Denver area. We need more chargers. We need a lot more chargers. We're several hundred, if not 1,000 charging stations behind schedule for the amount of cars that are coming online, the amount of people that are buying EVs, and of that percentage, if 35% of all those people that are buying EVs also need public charging because they're not at work yet, we need more public charging. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and I was going to say there, you alluded to the fact that initially it seemed like in America the coverage emphasis was along highways, which makes sense so that you could get from across country and have places to charge. And it sounds like now the emphasis needs to be on where the cars are, which is more the urban areas. Is Denver unique in that situation, or would you say most urban areas are starting to lag?
Oh, every single one of them. Every single urban, if you consider that you have an urban area, you are looking at ways to expand your charging infrastructure for your population. Absolutely. And the other part of that, it's a fascinating thing around the adoption curve with these electric vehicles, right?
Yeah.
The early adopters were primarily folks with a lot of disposable income likely to also have access to charging at home. And so the only other sort of public places that they needed charging was out on the highways for their road trips. And that's where the charging station network went first. That's where Tesla built theirs first. And then at some of the high-end places, because that's where the customers that currently had the EVs at that time needed charging outside of home. That next layer of that bell curve, if you're looking at the adoption curve, that next layer, now that I've gotten out of my early adopters and I'm getting a little bigger and a little bigger and a little bigger as I move through my bell curve.
Yeah.
Now I need to be in all the other places that people tend to be that may not be charging at home. If I'm supporting and proactively being ready for that bell curve to get larger and larger, I need to be thinking broader and broader about where those charging stations are going and all the different types that might be out there. Luckily, here in Denver, the city and county of Denver, we have it on our webpage as well, a list of the free charging station locations, level 2s, that the city and county of Denver pays for as a part of, being in Denver. It's, the Climate Action Office has looked for locations where these charging stations can be located. And right now, if they're not free, they're very, very low cost. And those are put in and maintained by the city and county of Denver's Climate Action Office. So, and then you've got your fast chargers that are out on the highways or in partnership with a lot of Walmarts or a lot of King Supers. You'll find some other fast charging stations. So at places where you shop, it's not at all of the Walmarts, and that would be great if someday we get there, or all of the King Supers, but eventually we will be there. But right now it's in the areas where they're seeing that there's already an aggressive adoption of electric vehicles in those spaces, and where there's an anticipated need for the charging stations. There's an app called PlugShare.
Okay.
Sometimes if you don't want to download the app or go to that web page, you don't have to download the app. You could also just literally Google it on your phone, so like on my phone, I would go to my Google map and type in charging stations, and on the map, it shows me charging stations that are near me, near my location. And oftentimes if you're in the process of adopting an EV, you haven't even thought to look for charging stations.
Right.
But it's really easy to find them. And in some of these cars, all of the electric vehicle cars right now are new. And so they're all coming with this technology, and your car knows where to help you find the nearest charging station. Like,
right.
It's going to say, hey, there's a charging station right up there on the right. There's one right here. There's another one a mile this way and another one a mile that way. Which one should I give you directions to? Because your car does not want to run out of power, right? It's sort of designed that way. Not that it has its own personality, but it's looking for ways to circumvent running out of power.
One more question for you here today.
Yeah.
I'll share screen while I do this. I briefly alluded to this, that Joanna Stern, the technology writer at the Wall Street Journal, did a study, like an anecdotal study, where she drove around LA trying to charge her electric vehicle, and she kept coming upon broken EV chargers. And I wonder if you want to take a minute or two to tell us about those broken EV chargers.
Such a frustrating experience. I mean, my heart just goes out to her. You talk, now, this isn't a totally new phenomenon. I've pulled up to my fair share of gas stations, and there not being any gas at the gas station too. And it's a frustrating experience. I mean, just her same thing of throwing her hands up and being like, WTF, what's going on?
Makes people use brake, right? You're right. You can pull up to a pump at the gas station and you get out, it's broken, and you got to move down to the next pump.
That's right. You got to move down, or you got to move down to the next station sometimes, right? Or when you pull up and you go to you plug in, or you put the for the gas cars, it trickles out. It's got like a little bit of gas. Like, I've pulled away from gas stations thinking that I was full because I was distracted. only to run out of gas on the highway, because anyway, so what we're seeing now is that we've got all these charging stations in places where maybe the person knows how to maintain them, maybe they don't. And maybe it's owned by a private brewery who now has a charging station out in their parking lot, but they brew beer. They don't really know how to fix charging stations.
Right.
And until someone brings it to their attention and points it out, and then that private host has to come up with the funds to find the charging station repair guy or to contact the manufacturer and to, get in the queue to get that charging station updated.
Right.
It's quite a challenge. This company here that she's talking to, Charter Help, they're one of my favorites out of LA.
Okay.
It's a woman-owned minority company who identified this problem several years ago and started a service company that goes around and fixes charging stations.
Okay.
I mean, one of the beautiful things about this clean energy industry is that the sky is the limit for all of the different types of work and services that we're going to need and products that we're going to need to support this transition. I mean, the thought that somebody would be starting an entire company just repairing charging stations.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody thought of that, Michael. I really think,
Yep.
until a few years ago, but as a typical entrepreneur, you find a need and you fill it. She found this need, that there were computers and hardware being placed out in the open, dealing with the elements, snow, wind, hail, sun, 100-degree weather, expected to operate and interact with a consumer who may or may not always know what they're doing, and then to have a network go down, or to have the internet go down, or to have something on the hardware break, just sitting out in the sun, things just break. And she created a business to help maintain, to go around and test the charging stations so that we can get to greater reliability. Kudos to her. If she ever goes public, I recommend looking into that, because these hardware pieces need to be maintained, period, end of story.
Yeah.
So it's going to be, I know that the city and county of Denver is looking for ways to try to incentivize or inspire some of our private hosts of these charging stations to find creative ways to keep them maintained, because what's the point of getting them all installed if they're not maintained? So we're moving towards that direction. It is not picture perfect. The other thing that's nice, though, on things like PlugShare is that it usually, if the charging station is a networked charging station, so it's connected to the network, then software and apps like PlugShare will tell you whether or not that, well, you can leave reviews on, so you can depend on your other fellow drivers to let you know that that charging station has issues, or that 3 of them work and 1 of them doesn't, or 2 of them work and the other 2 don't. And that's also what some of the, at least in Denver, that's what they're using to figure out which ones need to be repaired as well.
Okay. Awesome.
It's not a perfect system, but it is way better than it used to be. So anyone that once experienced it even a year ago, you're going to see that there are, hundreds more charging stations in the Denver area than there was even a year ago.
Any last thoughts, tips for people looking to buy an EV? Any last comments for
Oh, I have so many thoughts. I can't just start at the end and work my way up. Last thoughts. I mean, like, where do we start, right?
Right.
There are, one of the things, we get together with folks, casually over at IHOP on Wednesdays. We host our up and out, our office hours there, just to be able to sit and answer questions casually for folks that are thinking about getting an electric vehicle.
Okay.
And, we're answering questions that some people are like, oh my gosh, I have a really basic, simple question. All those questions are important because it's something that's on your mind. You're thinking about getting an EV. What do I need to know? And that depends on what do you usually use your car for and how often do you use it and how often do you usually get refueled, this, that, and the other. But I think the thing that's confusing folks right now are the rebates. Some folks are hearing, oh, I can get a car for 10 grand, or I can get a car for this much. For folks that are super cost sensitive about getting into a new electric vehicle, questioning the affordability of getting into a new electric vehicle, there are rebates all over the place. We have a
Okay.
state level rebate, federal, and through the utility company. Is there something specific, Michael, about?
No, I was just going to say people who want to reach out to you can find you at womenwhocharge.com.
That's right. On our website, Women Who Charge, we try to respond to the emails that we get through that web form there. And like I said, we also just try to do office hours at IHOP like once a month on Wednesdays. We just go and hang out for 2 hours just so that we can answer those questions. And we have charts and graphs that can show people where they might fit on the scales for the different types of incentive and rebate programs, but if you're going with an American made car, you can qualify for the federal rebate. That one could get you, $4,500, $5,000. The state of Colorado one, as long as it's not too expensive of a car, can get you another $5,000. The Excel Energy one can get you another set of, but sometimes it's like they have to sort of align with your income level, the type of car that you're picking, and the cost of the car. So we help people sort through those things of figuring out if this new form of transportation is going to be affordable for them and how much money they'll be saving if they go electric versus paying for gasoline. For a lot of folks, they're seeing a 75% savings in fuel cost. It's a dramatic savings from driving the same amount of miles that they would spend in gasoline versus what they would spend to recharge that car by plugging it into their wall at home.
Yeah.
The savings is dramatic. So when they can factor in how much money they're saving by not paying for gas, not paying for fuel, to be able to flow that into their monthly car payment, there's
Right.
usually still a savings. So we want to work with people to understand that sort of EV math, so to speak.
Yeah, that's awesome, LaSheita. I encourage everyone to go to Women Who Charge if you have questions about EVs. LaSheita is obviously the expert to talk to. And again, my name is Michael. I'm with ClimateCon. ClimateCon is a conference celebrating climate innovation and inspiring action. Everyone can learn more at climatecon.world. Our inaugural conference will be January 23rd. LaSheita, I want to thank you again for coming on board and for helping with this podcast today. Have a great Thanksgiving.
A great Thanksgiving to you too, Michael. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
See ya.